Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jen. Just now realizing I don't think I've shown my face on YouTube just yet, so welcome. For today's video, I have a lot of laundry and I thought why not share a story with you guys. The story I do want to share is my birth story. I've been wanting to share it for quite some time now, but I do want to give a quick disclaimer slash like trigger warning. It's not the most happiest and like sunshine and rainbows kind of birth story. It is a little bit traumatic, so I recommend if you are currently pregnant or are about to give birth, or if you're even thinking of becoming pregnant or you think you might be pregnant, I recommend not watching or listening to this video until after. If you really want to listen to this, I would recommend you listen to it after. I do not want you guys to stress on any of the stuff that I bring up from my situation that happened when I was pregnant or when I went in to give birth, because it could just be that it may not apply to you. I'm simply just sharing what happened to me and just my story pretty much, okay? So please, if you are pregnant or think you might be pregnant, don't listen to this. Wait until after. If you want to save this and come back to it later, then please do so. All right, so where to begin? Let's see. We're gonna start where I think it was the week of me giving birth. I actually went to the hospital because I thought I was experiencing symptoms of preeclampsia. So I first called my doctor. I told them all the symptoms I was having, and they're like, "Okay, go to the hospital. Let them know your symptoms, and they're gonna evaluate you and see what's going on." So I go and I arrive there and I tell them all the symptoms that I'm having, and then I don't know what in me told them to let them know I was having this other symptom where like I suddenly felt a bunch of like ants crawling all over my body. And I felt it only for like a couple seconds, but when I was there letting them know all the symptoms that I had, something in me was like, tell them this also. So I said it, and then they take me in. They're just like, taking my pee, getting my blood, and just like checking basically if there's anything to be like worried about, or anything that would cause suspicion for an induction or anything. So they do an ultrasound as well, just to check on the baby and see how she's doing and all. So good news was I didn't have preeclampsia, but when I was put into a room just for them to like tell me what was going on or what they thought was going on, one of the nurses did come back and she told me that they also went ahead and tested me for, I believe it's called cholestasis. Might be saying that wrong. It has to do with your bile acids. And the only downside to that was that she said that it was going to take about 3 to 5 days for those results to come back. And she did tell me that if it does have to do with that, then the risk would be that the baby can pass away in your belly. So obviously I'm very pregnant. I'm like close to almost giving birth. I think I was like 37 weeks around this time. So obviously the news to me was kind of like, oh my God, like what do you mean? And I'm supposed to wait 3 to 5 days to find out if I have that or not. So they just tell me to keep coming back the next day and the following day just to check on the baby, just to make sure that she's okay up until those results come in. And I go back the next day. Everything seems normal. They take another ultrasound. They're just checking the heart rate and everything seems fine. So on the third day, actually, they were like, oh, you don't have to come in at all. Plus, that third day, I actually already had my regular doctor checkup. And when I went, my doctor was like, oh, so how are the symptoms? Like, do you have any symptoms still going on? And I was like, no, everything's completely fine. My symptoms had gone away completely by this point. So he was like, all right, that's perfect. And then they checked to see like if I was dilating yet. I wasn't. So they were like, oh, okay, I'll expect to see you next week for your follow-up checkup, you know? And I'm like, okay, fine. Sounds great. And funny enough, when we got out of that appointment, my mom had made a comment and she was like, what are you craving right now? And I actually wanted a donut. I remember so clear. The last craving I had was a donut. So we went to a nearby spot that we love going to, and I got my donut. And my mom made a comment where she was like, this is gonna be your last craving that you're gonna have while pregnant. And I don't know why that kind of stuck with me. I was like, huh, it might be. And then the rest of the day, completely normal, feeling baby and everything. She's doing fine, I'm doing fine. I don't have any symptoms or anything. And then come at nighttime, I'm pretty much getting ready to go to bed. I had just had dinner. So getting all my stuff ready. Mind you, by this point, I already had like a hospital bag because my nurse had actually told me like, just be ready just in case you're in the final weeks, something might happen suddenly, so just have that hospital bag ready just in case. So as I'm getting ready to go to bed, I get a call from the hospital. Mind you, this is like late at 9 p.m., almost 10. I was literally about to go to bed. So I get the call from the hospital, sorry, and they tell me, hey, so your results just came back, and turns out that that your bile acids are very elevated. And they proceed to say, so we need you to come in so we can induce you and have that baby, like right now. And I'm shocked because obviously earlier in the day, I had already gone to my doctor, and they're like, okay, everything seems fine. We should be able to see you until next week. So I start getting really nervous. I'm like, what? What do you mean? I have to go now? And they're like, yes, you have to come in right now. I'm like so nervous, and I live at home with my parents, so I go and tell them, mind you, they're like super asleep by this point, and I'm telling them, hey, so the hospital just called and they told me that I need to go so they can induce me because I need to have the baby like as soon as possible. And they both wake up like, huh? What do you mean? And to make long story short, we start getting everything ready. Good thing is that I already have the hospital bag ready, and we're just putting everything together, and we're going to load up the car so we can go. Crazy thing is that day, I remember it so clear, it was pouring rain. It was raining so hard, and I don't know why, it was like immense amounts of rain. I was like, what the heck? So like, as I'm getting out of the house, I'm already getting soaked, like extremely soaked. I don't know, something about the rain and me like being pregnant, like very, very pregnant, was just like, it was like, oh my God, I was scared, you know? As you can imagine, anybody probably would be scared in that situation, to being told you have to be emergency induced about a couple weeks before you're supposed to have the baby. And so we go to the hospital. I go and I tell them like, hey, I got a call, and then they immediately pass me on. They start taking my vitals and everything, and I had to wait still for a room to open up because when I got there, all the rooms were taken. So I was just waiting. And my daughter's dad lives in a completely different state. So funny enough, when I got to the hospital, it still wasn't like it wasn't real to me that I was gonna have the baby just yet. I don't know why I kept thinking and believing like, no, what if like they suddenly just say, no, you can go home. So I wasn't calling him, mind you, it's like 11 p.m. By the time we got to the hospital, it was already 11 p.m. and he lives in a different state, so over there where he lives it was like I think an hour ahead or so. But point being is that I know that he's already like asleep because he's gonna, you know, get up for work the next day or whatever. And so up until I know for sure that I'm getting a room, that's when I decide, okay, fine, I'll give him a call. Yeah, I ended up giving him a call at like midnight. So I call him, I tell him, hey, this is what's going on. He's like, okay, I'll be down there as soon as he possibly can. So fast forward to me going into the room, and it all happened so fast. The second they got me in the room, my nurse, she immediately started with explaining how they were going to induce me first. They induced me in 3 different ways, but first we're going to talk about the first, I think the first 2. So they induced me with what is called a balloon, and it's when they stick like a stick basically, and it has like 2 little balloons at the very top of the end, and they come and they inflate that balloon with water basically. And it's really to start getting you to dilate, to start getting you to open. And yeah, things started moving very quickly. They also put like 2 hormonal pills on the sides of my gums. They said that that works well with the balloon. So that's how they first induced me. And they gave me a ball so I could, like, you know, be moving around. I was walking back and forth in my room. My mom was with me, so luckily I wasn't alone. I continued to basically go on with my labor. My mom had really fast labors with all 3 of us. That was not the case for me. At first I was progressing pretty quickly. I believe they had, by the time they put me in a room, it was like almost 1 a.m. I want to say maybe when they came back to check how I was doing, and when they took out the balloon, I had already dilated to about a 5. I can't remember what time it was. I know it had to be like maybe 3 in the morning, maybe 4 or so. And those contractions were coming on strongly. And all of this was still without an epidural just yet. My original plan was to not get an epidural, but I'll tell you later why it ended up working out the way it did. So after they took out the balloon, I actually asked if I could just see how my body progressed on its own, because I was just really trying to avoid them doing any other like methods on me, and I just really wanted to do as much natural as possible. So that's what we did. We waited to see like how my body was going to react, if it was going to progress, because by this point I had already gotten to like around a 5. So my body was progressing. And then what happened next was that the nurses shifts actually switched. So my night nurse had to go, and then I got a new nurse. And the new nurse that I had was also an amazing nurse, but she was definitely not playing around. She was there to do her job and get everything done. She was also very informative, which I appreciate. And I believe they were also very low staffed during this time too. So she came in and she immediately asked me, like, are you gonna want the epidural? And I tried telling her the exact same thing that I had told the other nurse, and she immediately told me, okay, well, we only have 1 anesthesiologist, so I'm kind of gonna need you to make up your mind as soon as possible, because he is in a C-section right now, and then there's already like I think 3 girls after that C-section that were going to get the epidural too. And I think what she was trying to avoid was for me to end up asking for it like much later, which point could have ended up really badly. If I wanted it, I probably would have been pushed to the back of the line, and I probably wouldn't end up being able to get it. So she says, I'm gonna give you a couple minutes to make up your mind, and I'll come back and you let me know. So to make long story short, I end up asking for it, and immediately after I got it, my body was like a big no. my body did not react okay to the epidural. My daughter didn't react okay to it either. Obviously, when you get the epidural, they put you on your back and they like start trying to turn you like a rotisserie chicken, and they put a peanut ball in between your legs to, I think it's really just for the blood flow. And my body was not reacting well. My daughter wasn't reacting well. I think the second they laid me down, my daughter's heart rate started going down, mine started going up. So there was like a bunch of like alarms going off, and then my nurse came running in just to see like what was going on, and they see that my daughter's heart rate was going down. So obviously in that point I start getting really overwhelmed. I'm nervous. It's also my first time having a baby, so I had no idea what the heck was going on, and I just start crying, and my nurse sees that I start crying, and she really had a lot of support for me in this moment. She was like, what's wrong, like, are you scared? And I open up to her and I tell her like, yes, I'm scared that something can happen to the baby. And she's like, everything is going to be fine, like just reassuring me that I'm okay, the baby was okay. She's like, I have a good eye on her, we're just gonna switch you to see like what position she likes. She's just being very picky right now, is what she told me. So they start changing me positions to see what works best. Basically my daughter did not like me being on my back in any kind of way or on my side, so basically laying down was out of the question. And then they tried to see if me being sitting down was gonna work, so they put me in a squat position, and basically I end up being in the squat position up until I have my daughter, which is funny because thinking back to it, I'm like, I definitely would have preferred just dealing with the contractions, even though I was having a lot of back labor before I got the epidural, and it was like a lot of pressure. Obviously if you've had a baby, you know how it feels, and my mom was just applying like a lot of counter pressure for me to like kind of have a little bit of relief in between. And then once I got the epidural, like my body actually stopped progressing, so it was another sign that my body just didn't like the epidural. And I ended up having a 16-hour labor too, which, oh my gosh, I know stories of people who've had like way longer labor, but the thing was that they were comparing me to how my mom's labors were, and my mom had me and my siblings within hours. Like she didn't really struggle that much for labor, but she never got the epidural for either one of us. She was just really good at giving birth, I guess. And in my case, I got induced. My mom didn't get induced with any of us. I think she only got induced with my sister, and even then that was still a fast labor for her. So in other words, I feel like my mom was just really great at giving birth. Not in my case. They did end up giving me Pitocin, and that was another thing that my body did not react well to either. But they gave me Pitocin because I believe the doctor came in and broke my water just to see like how I was doing. And at this point, when he broke the water, there was, I think, yellow and green that came out, so meaning that my daughter had actually pooped inside. And they say that when this happens, it's because the baby's under a lot of stress. So I already had a clock on me before, like when they first induced me, they wanted me to have her within the next 24 hours. And then from, I think when I got the epidural or the Pitocin, they were like, okay, now we need to have a shorter window. And then once they saw that, they're like, okay, the baby needs to come out within like the next couple of hours. And at this point, my body still wasn't progressing because of the epidural, the Pitocin. Like my body was just not reacting well to it. So they were trying to do everything that they could, and they were also trying to avoid a C-section, which thankfully, yes, we did end up avoiding the C-section at all costs. Now I'm just gonna fast forward to when I'm now being able to start pushing. So they start checking me to see like how I'm doing, and I'm fully dilated at this point, and my daughter was already like head down and like really close, like you could see the head. So they were like, all right, we're gonna start doing some practice pushes now. And I remember, this is actually really cool. I'm not sure if all hospitals do this. I know that the hospital that I gave birth to was a baby-friendly hospital, so maybe that's why. But they actually offered me a mirror to put right in front of me so I could see while I was pushing. And this was only during the practice pushes, because then once the doctor came in, they removed that mirror. It was only during like the practice pushes that they offered me to put the mirror right there. And I said yes. So I was actually able to see, as I was doing like practice pushes, her head going out and then going right back in when I was stopped doing the pushes. I just thought that was amazing. I was like, oh my god, like what? I was like all fascinated by it. But honestly, to me, it gave me motivation, because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm almost about to like have her in my arms. So it really gave me a lot of motivation. I think we only did about 3 practice pushes. And then for the actual pushes, I only pushed twice, and she came out after the second push. I was like, wow, she came out so fast. Had quite a long labor, but she came out very fast. So I just remember that my mom was right next to me. This was before I pushed her out. I was telling Mom, like, oh my gosh, like, no, she's coming out. Like, I know she's coming out now. So, like, I relate to all those that say, you know, when the baby's coming out, like, you'll know. It feels different. So I start saying, like, no, I need to push. And funny enough, there was another girl in another room from me, and they were going back and forth between us, and apparently the staff was betting to see who was going to be able to push the baby out first, me or the other girl. And so my nurse was going back and forth between both of us, trying to use their better judgment to see who's going to push out the baby first. And then I get to the point where I'm like, like, whether that doctor's here or not, like, I'm pushing, I can't keep her in. And I just remember my nurses being like, just wait a few minutes, the doctor's almost here. And I'm like, no, like, I need to push now. So then the doctor finally arrives. That's my other thing. Why do doctors take so long? Like, it feels like in that moment when you're ready to push, they're nowhere to be found. But point being, the doctor finally gets there and he's ready, so I start pushing, and by the second push, boom, my daughter came right on out. And I remember seeing the doctor's reaction. He's like, oh, like, that was fast, because like my daughter came out really quick. And I because she came out so quick, she actually tore me really bad. I had a 2nd-degree tear, which I know is not as bad. I know a friend of mine who had a 3rd-degree tear. Very, very, very traumatizing. Now this is where it gets to the semi-scary part. After having my daughter, she was completely fine, no complications with her. However, with me, you know, after you push your baby out, they're supposed to get your placenta out. So they put my baby on top of me because it's supposed to like distract you and have all the lovely hormones with you and the baby bonding at this point. And I feel that the doctor is trying to, you know, like, get my placenta out. And the pain that I felt, because by the time that I was already starting to push my daughter, the epidural had worn down already, so I was able to feel everything pretty much. And I didn't want to press the epidural again because I didn't want that to be what was going to get in the way of me giving birth to my daughter. So I decided to not put another dosage on myself, because it was the ones with the buttons. But anyways, the doctor couldn't get my placenta out. I could feel like he was tugging on my insides. Like, it literally felt like the most excruciating pain ever. It hurts, to me at least, for me, and in that case, how I was, it hurt so much more than having my daughter. It was excruciating pain, and I could feel it all the way on my insides. So they call back the anesthesiologist because they're like, my placenta was extremely stuck also. So they call him back because I was basically hopping off the table at this point because of how much pain I was in. And so they call back the anesthesiologist, and he comes back, and I don't know what he gave me, but he gave me something really, really strong to just like kind of put my body to sleep in a sense so I wouldn't feel it. And I guess the good thing was that since I already had the epidural in me, the only thing he had to do was just inject it in there, and it spread to my body so fast I didn't feel a thing. The only thing I felt was like tugging, but I didn't feel any pain. But I remember that whatever it is that he gave me, it put me out immediately. I was kind of like going in and out. I just remember looking up at the light. I could hear things, but I just wasn't fully there. But I remember that the doctor was having a hard time still trying to get my placenta out. And I remember looking over at my mom. She's holding my daughter at this point. And just the look on her face, I was like, oh my gosh, is it that bad? But she had this look of shock on her face because the doctor was going in and out with tweezers to get my placenta out. They had to get my placenta out in pieces. And I remember them saying that my placenta was rotting from the inside. So I was very scary to hear. Since he was having trouble, I do remember very clearly one of the nurses saying, should I prep for an OR? So like after I hear that, I'm like, what do you mean an OR? I just had my daughter naturally, and now in my mind I'm like, I tried to avoid a C-section, and after having given birth to her, you mean to tell me you guys are still gonna put me in an operating room to open me up after I had already given birth, just because my placenta was like extremely stuck? But my doctor responded and was like, no, I got this. So luckily he was able to get my placenta out. It took quite a challenge, and I did lose quite a lot of blood. It was a very, very scary moment because in my mind I was actually thinking, what if I don't make it? Which is very, very sad to think of in that moment. But obviously, like, you have no idea what is going on, and you just feel a lot of tugging. You're hearing things everywhere. You're obviously not on their side of what they're seeing, and I'm just like having so many things running through my head while at the same time I'm going in and out. So maybe, I don't know if me going in and out was also me hearing things and taking it out of context. So like it was freaking me out even more. But I remember I had a student nurse in there too, and she was just right by my side since my mom couldn't be right next to me. She was holding my daughter. The student was really helpful, very supportive. She held my hand, and she was just like trying to soothe me as much as possible with everything that they were doing. And then finally the doctor is at the point where he's able to stitch me up, and he cleaned everything in there, all the wound, got all the blood out. So after stitching me up, then I remember I got the shakes. Some people get the shakes right before giving birth. I know some people get it after. I definitely was one of the ones that got it after. But my body was shaking so uncontrollably that even some of the nurses were like, okay, this is doing too much. But the thing was that after I had my daughter, I was right at the cutting point. So meaning, as soon as I had my daughter, everyone who was on that shift, their time was off. So then came in the next shift. And I don't know if someone just didn't write down what the anesthesiologist gave to me for them to be able to get my placenta out. But I think my body was reacting to everything very late. My body was reacting to the epidural because during the time that they were trying to get my placenta out, I forgot to mention that one of the nurses was pressing the button of the epidural so I can get more of it into my system, and it was taking its time, or it just wasn't working, or I don't know what it was, but it took its time. And I think by the time that the anesthesiologist came back and injected whatever it was that he did to make my body numb so I wouldn't feel, then everything came all at once, and by that time, when they left, I had a whole new team, and none of them were able to figure out what was going on with me. So I stayed in my room a lot longer. Usually as soon as you have the baby, they're able to switch you into the next room where you're just able to rest. And I stayed in my room a lot longer because they were trying to figure out what the heck was going on. And I was getting a fever, and it was just a lot going on. So my daughter was completely fine. There was no complications with her. Complications were with me after I had her. So that was a very, very scary part, which is why so many things were going through my head. I'm like, am I even going to make it? Like, what the heck is going on? The new team that came on, they couldn't give me answers, and I just didn't know what was going to happen. So it continued like this up until they're like, okay, we have to get her into the room. Like, they needed to clear out the space for the next person, basically. And I just had like a whole team that was just keeping a really close eye on me. So I wasn't able to hold my daughter. Usually they give you your baby and they put you on a wheelchair to be able to go into the room. I wasn't able to do that. They had to take me into the room in a gurney, and they had to take my daughter in her own crib. So we weren't together. We were separate up until we got into the room. And then when they moved me over to the bed, obviously when you get an epidural, they take out the catheter that's in there, and then you're supposed to use the restroom before you go home. Or actually, they won't let you go home until you use the restroom. So I just remember being in a lot of pain afterwards, and then eventually all the symptoms that I was having started to fade away. So then the brand new team who was taking care of me came back, and we're like, okay, so we're going to go with the fact that maybe your body was just having a really late reaction to all the stuff that they gave you. Maybe that was the reason why my body was reacting like all out of control and stuff. So then by this point, I'm in the clear. They're like, we're still gonna keep an eye on you, obviously. I stayed there for the full 24 hours, and then I was able to go home. And then there was also a lactation consultant that came in to like help me being able to lactate, because I did want to breastfeed my daughter. I was super adamant about only breastfeeding, which I quickly learned that your milk does not come in quite fast. So obviously when I went home, I had to get some formula for her just for like the first couple of days. And I also bought a pump because we couldn't get her to latch on to me. This is a completely different story, which I'll probably make a separate video about, but just to go into the quick little details of it, is that my daughter actually had a tongue tie and a lip tie, which that was the reason why she wasn't able to latch, and it would hurt both me and her when she wanted to feed and when I wanted to feed her, which eventually we took care of it, and then she was able to latch on after. But for the first couple of weeks before we got that surgery done for her, it was really painful. I was pumping around the clock all day, all night. I think in the very beginning I was pumping every 2 hours, and that meant every 2 hours. So even if it was midnight all throughout the night, I was up every 2 hours pumping so I could have milk for her. And that was all because I chose to breastfeed, which I'm actually still breastfeeding, which I'm kind of happy about. I'm going on 2 years of breastfeeding her. I do want to stop after 2 years, but who knows, we'll see, because I've been saying that I was going to stop when she turned 1, and then when she turned 1.5, and now she's about to turn 2. If you can relate to this, let me know. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. But yeah, there you have it, guys. That was my birth story, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. If you guys had a similar story or anything that any of this resonated with you, let me know. I'm be very, very happy to hear your guys' story as well.